Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, before the 90 days. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I do on this channel, since it's a psychology YouTube channel, might contain triggering material, so keep that in mind. Let's watch.
Problem?
I have to poop.
Oh,
Poop. I have to poop. My stomach hurts.
sorry. Baby,
Yes?
it's okay?
Yes, I'm still pooping.
Good job,
No, not yet. Almost.
baby.
Well, I didn't think we would see a scene like this ever, on television for that matter. She says she has to poop, and she announces to her partner. He says, oh, and she says, it hurts. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, baby. He's kind to her. He shows her the bathroom. She starts to go to the bathroom. She starts to make noises. He's outside saying, good job, you're doing it. Are you okay? And she's giving him checkups on what's happening, giving updates. Yeah, I mean, each to their own. Lots of different couples have different ideas about this. Some people are extremely private about this. Some people are not. I think that it's totally fine. You can be private. You can be public about it with people that are consenting to that publicity. And they're exhibiting that, which is healthy. Everyone poops, right? It's fine. We don't have to shame that. It might look weird to you, but they clearly are comfortable talking about poop and giving updates on it and being a part of each other's life in this way. And in some ways, it can be an extremely intimate thing. It can be an extremely, I mean, if you want to be intimate, you obviously you don't have to do this. And some people will say like, I like a little bit of the mystery in that department. It kind of turns me off sexually. But, some people are extremely involved in that way. Probably a product of their upbringing, which, some families are just more open about that. My family was probably in that direction, in that we didn't have locks on our doors, and sometimes people wouldn't close the door when they were going to the bathroom. It was, I don't know if it's a Japanese American thing or a farmer. And I come from both white and Japanese side were farmers. And my Japanese side, there was like 10 people lived in the same shack. There were no walls. So I'm guessing privacy wasn't really a thing. So, in my adult life, I've kind of shifted more toward the other side because not a lot of people are like my family in that way. But when I get around my family, my siblings and my parents, we can sometimes bother our partners because of our openness, including the pod wife.
Finish it?
Me done.
We've come a long way in our society in terms of our mores and culture because, I don't know if you know this, but in the past, it was considered immoral or vulgar or, what do you say? It's the wrong, there's a word for it, that unseemly, what's the word? It's, pornography is that, anyway, I'm sure people will comment below. I have to look up the word. Obscene. It was considered obscene to have even the sound of a flushing toilet on television in the United States because we didn't want to acknowledge the fact that humans are human. If you've seen I Love Lucy, Being the Ricardos, the new movie, there were all these practices on TV. You couldn't acknowledge the fact that women got pregnant, because that would have to acknowledge that sex existed. And we've come a long way to the point where we can have this scene, which I consider to be a positive. Now, if you don't want to watch it, if this grosses you out, totally fine. You can turn away. You could pause it. You could not watch this show. But everyone poops. There are things I always try to ask myself. It feels shameful, but what is shame? Shame is supposed to be used as society. We're supposed to point and say, shame, that's wrong. You should not do that. We want to shame people away from certain behavior. Murder, we should shame. Sexual assault, we should shame. Killing a puppy, we should shame. Ruining the environment, knowingly, we should shame. These are harmful things that are actually bad to the world. If something feels shameful, like pooping or acknowledging it or talking about it or depicting it, it feels shameful, but is it actually harmful? No, It absolutely is not harmful. In fact, you could consider this to be the opposite of harm in terms of it normalizes what literally everybody does, including all the other animals that defecate, which I'm sure there are some animals that don't, but maybe all of them do. I don't know. Point is that everyone poops, including fish, and so everything's fine. It's totally normal. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Oh, are you talking about like when I was a kid?
Yes, yes.
Oh. I haven't told Hamza about my past before I came to Tunisia because I would rather talk to him in person because it is a sensitive topic for me, so it's hard to open up.
Yeah, so this is frequently something that happens on this show where they wait until they're in person before revealing something that is sensitive. Sometimes we would criticize that, like someone withholding the fact that they don't want to have kids, like with Mike and Jimena, which I don't think I've posted those videos. Sometimes I do reactions and I find the videos only like 2 minutes long and I'm like, well, I'm not going to post that. I think that was one of those. So that's not okay. You should tell people well in advance, maybe even before you even start dating, what your intentions are, particularly around kids, because those things are deal breakers for a lot of people. If it's not a deal breaker for both people, if it's like, well, I'm sort of open, then, that should be known up front. Anyway, so, but this is not in that category. She's talking about not wanting to tell Hamza about the fact, I think, that she was adopted or in foster care, and about her parents and what their struggles were, which I would consider to be totally fine if she wanted to, wait to talk about that. She says, I think she's worried that he's going to judge her or something. I don't know. He seems like a super easygoing guy. So let's see what he says.
Father.
On drugs.
Drugs?
Yes, sell drugs. Locked up.
Oh, okay. What time? Long time?
Long time. Years till I was like 30.
Yeah, the war on drugs and our, some of our politicians being hard on people who use or sell or traffic drugs is one of the most destructive policies that we've had that's still basically in place. People become addicted to substances 99% of the time, in my experience, and research suggests this, due to trauma. So people are traumatized growing up, and then they have a hard time regulating their emotions. They're easily triggered. They have a lot of attachment insecurity, and they're trying to get their needs met. They're trying to survive. They're trying to have relationships. They're trying to get jobs, and they keep shooting themselves in the foot because they're basically, raw nerves walking around, like being poked at frequently and reacting. And then they learn, if I deaden my nerves or distract myself through various different compulsive behaviors, particularly heroin will do this, alcohol, then I can function. Now I'm adding another problem, but I'm reducing other problems. And then that cascades into greater use over time, and then that creates a whole other set of problems where you might even lose your jobs, you might even lose your relationships because of the addiction. But the way it started out was actually seemingly a logical solution in lieu of the fact that there was nothing else available. Either they didn't know about therapy could help, they couldn't afford it, our health system didn't allow it, or they did meet up with 5 therapists and none of them understood this premise. A lot of therapists don't even understand really how to treat relational trauma, or they just use skills and stuff, deep breathing and stuff, which is fine, but it's not going to do much. And so we have all these people, and then we have this policy of lock them up, 3 strikes, you're out. You have a pound of weed and you're trafficking in it, because once you get into that world, the way, because you won't be able to keep a job other places because they won't like what they're seeing. And so you end up falling into that world of dealing, and that becomes your life. And you're not a bad person, but you are trying to survive like anyone else. And then you get caught, because that frequently happens. And then you go to prison, and then you are taken away from your kids. And those kids are further traumatized, which go on to have troubles, which go on to have drug problems, which go on to have, a bump in with the law. And we don't sometimes we do have rational policies. Here in Seattle, we have a little bit more of a rational policy compared to the rest of the country, but it's still not completely rational. If we spent half of what we spend, or 10% of what we spend on stealth bombers, on programs that can actually help this, there are things we can do. There are people available. It's not like it's like where everyone's house has like leaky pipes, and you can't get a hold of plumbers because there's not enough, or the plumbers don't really know what they're doing. And we're all just like, well, that's just how it is. It's like, no, there's a rational solution to this. It's about money. It's about tax dollars. It's about politicians. It's about taxpayers voting for politicians that actually fund these things, not promises, actual funding of these programs, actual paying. Will that ever happen? Not in my lifetime, I don't think, but there's a rational, there's research. It's all understandable. It's all makes sense. Aliens watching us from above are like, what are you doing to yourself? Why are you doing this? Among many things. But point is that I don't know if that's the case for Memphis, but it's a very common story, and one that I interfaced with frequently. I would treat both the parents, I would treat the kids, I would go into prison, I would go into detention centers, and because a lot of the kids end up in their own legal problems. Anyway, so I don't know. It's just a thought that I had as she was talking about that.
I am sad.
So abandonment, like you leaving me, is a hard thing.
Wow. I mean, it couldn't get any better than this. Through their language barrier, they're, I think, managing to communicate, and he is, wow, I'm sad. I mean, what a great response. Kiss her on the forehead. And then she, given his tenderness and his openness, says, that's why I react when you abandon me. So this is great. It's very healthy.
Now that I've opened up about my past to Hamza, I feel a lot more vulnerable. But seeing how emotional Hamza got really touched my heart, and it really makes me feel like it's okay to be open with him. And I hope he can be just as open with me before we get married.
It just breaks your heart that for her, it had nothing to do with her choice, right? She was born into a family of parents who were probably relationally traumatized, and maybe even other trauma as well, and were struggling, trying to make ends meet, fall into a pattern of addiction because of their emotional difficulties and lack of support and active potential racism, right? That's happening on a daily basis that pushes you down, maybe even from the mental health system, who knows? But and you rise above it yourself. You become a nurse. You have kids. You are breaking the chain of issues like that. And then she feels ashamed and worried about telling her partner about that. It just breaks your heart to think that our society, or we as humans, put people in that position, right? It's awful. All right, well, I want to thank everyone who's liked or subscribed or hit the bell on the YouTube thingy, because that's super cool of you. But it's up to you. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.